Jake Morrison sat in his chair staring at the screen. He had been watching the empty black of space for 3 hours now. Nothing ever happened during his shift. Just the quiet hum of machines and the occasional beep from the computers. He took another sip of his coffee and wished something interesting would happen for once. Then the screen lit up with colors and sounds. Red warnings flashed across every monitor. The computer started making noise, translating something from deep space. Jake jumped up so fast his coffee spilled across his desk. Amy Chen ran over from her station on the other side of the room. Her eyes were wide as she looked at the incoming message. "Commander, this is not a drill," Amy said. Her hands were shaking as she typed on her keyboard. "Someone out there is calling for help. They are dying." Jake leaned over her shoulder and read the words appearing on the screen. The computer was turning alien language into English. The message was simple but terrible. A colony was under attack. Civilians were being killed. They needed military help immediately. They had maybe 6 hours before everyone died. "Get Admiral Hayes on the line right now," Jake said. He grabbed the communication device and spoke into it with urgency. "This is Lieutenant Commander Morrison. We have an emergency situation. I need the Admiral immediately." 20 minutes later, Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in her office reading the same message. She was a woman who had seen many battles in her long career. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her face showed no fear. But inside her mind was racing. This was bigger than anything she had handled before. "How far away is this colony?" Patricia asked. 14 light years from Earth, Jake answered. "With our new jump drives, we can get there in about 16 hours. Patricia looked at the star map on her wall. The location was marked now, a small red dot in the vast darkness of space. She thought about all the ships under her command. She thought about the thousands of people who would need to go into danger. But most of all, she thought about the aliens who were about to die if nobody helped them. "They did not mean to call us, did they?" Patricia asked quietly. Jake shook his head. "No, Admiral. This message went out on emergency channels. Our translators picked up some background data. Humans are not supposed to receive these calls. Why not? Because we come from a death world. That is what they call Earth. They think we are too dangerous." Patricia almost smiled at that. Humans were considered monsters by the rest of the galaxy. They were afraid of Earth and everyone who lived there. The other aliens thought humans were violent and scary. They wanted nothing to do with them. But now one of them needed help and humans had heard the call. "Get me Commander Grant," Patricia said. Lisa Grant walked into the office a moment later. She was a smart woman who had served with Patricia for many years. "Lisa, I want the 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets ready to leave in 4 hours. Full weapons, full supplies, everything we have." Lisa's mouth fell open. "Admiral, that is more than 300 ships. That is almost our entire military force." "I know exactly what it is," Patricia said firmly. "If we are going to save these people, we need to bring enough force that nobody will try to stop us." "Get it done." Lisa nodded and rushed out of the room. Within minutes, the call went out across all of Earth. Every ship received the order. Every captain started preparing their crew. Shore leave was canceled. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Engineers checked every system twice. Medical teams packed their supplies. The entire military machine of Earth began moving toward one single goal. Daniel Cross stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon. He watched his crew rush to their stations. Everyone moved with purpose and speed. They had trained for years, but this was real. This was actually happening. His second-in-command, Stephanie Walsh, came to stand beside him. "All systems are ready, Captain," Stephanie said. "We can jump whenever the fleet is ready." Daniel nodded. He looked out at the view screen showing the other ships gathering in formation. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, support ships, more than 300 vessels all preparing to jump through space together. It was the biggest show of force humanity had ever assembled. "Do we know what we are flying into?" Daniel asked. "Not really," Stephanie admitted. "The enemy is called the Kreshtar Swarm. Intelligence does not have much information about them, but the aliens who called for help sound terrified." On Earth, millions of people watched the news. The reporters did not have many details, but they knew something big was happening. Every military ship was leaving at once. Families gathered around their screens hoping to catch a glimpse of their loved ones. Some people were scared. Others were proud. Everyone wondered what would happen next. Nicole Harper held her daughter Emma close as they watched the news together. Her husband Marcus was on one of the ships preparing to leave. He had sent her a short message saying he loved her. and would come home soon. Nicole hoped he was right. She hoped all of them would come home. Across the fleet, young soldiers checked their equipment. Chris Bennett was only 21 years old and fresh out of training. He sat in his fighter craft running through the pre-flight checklist again and again. His hands were sweating. This was what he had trained for. But now that it was real, he felt scared. In the medical bay of the sanctuary, Dr. Helen Rodriguez organized her teams. She was an experienced surgeon who had worked in war zones before. She knew what was coming. There would be injuries. There would be death. She prepared herself mentally for the hard work ahead. Admiral Hayes appeared on every screen across the fleet. Her face was calm and strong. She looked at the camera and spoke to every single person who would be risking their lives. "We received a call for help," Patricia began. "Aliens are dying. They did not mean to contact us. They think we are monsters. They think Earth is too dangerous. They think humans are too violent to be trusted. But we heard them anyway, and we are going to help them." She paused and let her words sink in. "We are going because it is the right thing to do. When someone asks for help, you do not ask if they meant to call you. You just go. You just help. That is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We do not know what we will find out there. We do not know how strong the enemy is. But I know one thing. Every person on these ships volunteered to stand between innocent people and those who want to hurt them. Today we prove that Earth's children are not monsters. We are heroes. Prepare to jump. Let us go save some lives." Across 300 ships, crews secured themselves in their stations. Engines powered up. Jump drives began to charge. In 16 hours, they would arrive at a colony they had never heard of to fight an enemy they knew nothing about. They would do it to save aliens who feared them. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. The universe bent around them. Space folded, and 300 human ships vanished in a flash of light, racing across the stars to answer a call that was never meant for them. The jump through space was always strange. Reality bent and twisted around the ships. Colors that had no names flashed past the windows. Time seemed to move differently. Some crew members felt sick. Others felt nothing at all. But after what felt like both seconds and hours, the fleet emerged into normal space, 14 light years from Earth. Daniel stood on his bridge and immediately checked the sensors. They were still 12 hours away from the colony at regular speed. The enemy would not see them yet. That gave them time to prepare and plan. He turned to Stephanie, who was already reading the tactical displays. "What do we know?" Daniel asked. Stephanie pulled up a holographic display showing the star system ahead. "The colony is on the 4th planet. Long-range sensors show approximately 80 enemy ships in orbit around it. They are arranged in a sphere formation, closing in on the planet. It looks like they are preparing for a full attack. 80 ships against our 300, Daniel said. We have the numbers. But we do not know their capabilities, Stephanie warned. These Kreshtar could have weapons we have never seen before. We should be careful." Across the fleet, every ship was running similar analyses. Captains studied their enemy from a distance. Scientists tried to understand the alien technology. Weapons officers calculated firing solutions. Everyone prepared for battle in their own way. In the fighter bay of the carrier Independence, Chris Bennett sat with the other pilots. They were all young, all nervous, all trying to act brave. Their squadron leader, a woman named Katie Pierce, stood in front of them. She was only 30 but had more flight hours than anyone else in the group. "Listen up," Katie said firmly. "We do not know what kind of fighters these aliens have. We do not know how they move or how they shoot. So we stick together. We watch each other's backs. We follow the plan. And we all come home. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the pilots responded together. Katie looked at each of them. These were good kids, smart kids, but they were still kids. This would be their first real battle. She hoped they would all survive it. In the medical bay, Helen worked with her staff to set up emergency trauma centers. They had supplies for thousands of casualties. Beds were prepared. Surgical tools were sterilized. Blood was stored and ready. Everything was organized with military precision. A young nurse named Paul Griffin approached Helen nervously. He was fresh out of medical school and had never treated combat injuries before. "Dr. Rodriguez, what should I expect?" Helen stopped what she was doing and looked at him kindly. "Expect chaos. Expect things you have never seen before. Expect to be scared, but also expect to save lives. That is why we are here. Focus on that. Paul nodded and went back to his station. Helen watched him go and remembered when she had been that young and nervous. War changed people. She hoped it would not change these young ones too much. On the Olympus, Admiral Hayes met with her senior commanders via video link. Faces appeared on screens all around her. These were the people who would lead the battle. These were the ones she trusted most. We have 12 hours before we engage, Patricia said. I want suggestions. How do we do this with minimum casualties on both sides? A captain named Victor Shaw spoke up. He was a tactical genius who had written several books on space combat. We should jump in at maximum weapons range. Show overwhelming force immediately. Give them a chance to surrender before we fire a single shot. And if they do not surrender, asked another captain. Then we disable their ships rather than destroy them, Victor said. Target their engines and weapons. Leave their life support intact. We are here to stop an attack, not commit genocide. Patricia nodded slowly. I like it. But we need to be ready for a fight. If they come at us hard, we respond appropriately. Rules of engagement are defensive. We do not fire first, but we finish any fight they start. The commanders agreed. Orders were sent out across the fleet. Every weapons officer received the same instructions. Disable, not destroy. Protect, not punish. This was a rescue mission, not a war of conquest. As the hours passed, the human fleet moved steadily toward the colony. Sensors gave them more information about the enemy. The Kreshtar ships were biological in nature. They looked like giant insects floating in space. They had organic weapons that fired compressed energy. Their hulls were thick and armored with some kind of natural plating. They are born for war, observed Lieutenant Kevin Price as he studied the data. These ships are not built. They are grown. The Kreshtar must breed them somehow. Can we hurt them? Asked his assistant. Kevin ran simulations on his computer. Yes, our missiles should penetrate their armor. Our lasers will burn through their hulls. They are tough, but not invincible. On the planet below, Administrator Kelrath watched the enemy ships grow closer. The Vrexians had exhausted all their defensive options. Their small fleet had been destroyed. Their orbital platforms were gone. Now there was nothing between the Kreshtar and the civilian population. How long until they start bombing? Kelrath asked his staff. 4 hours, maybe 5, answered his military advisor. They are taking their time. They want us to suffer first. Kelrath felt hopeless. 300,000 of his people huddled in shelters underground. Families held each other. Children cried. Everyone waited for the end to come. The distress signal had been sent days ago. No one had answered. No one was coming. Or so he thought. Zelmar, the communications officer, suddenly jumped up from his station. His face showed confusion and shock. Sir, I am detecting something. Multiple jump signatures. Very large jump signatures. The council? Kelrath asked with sudden hope. No, sir. These drive patterns are unknown. I have never seen anything like this before. There are so many of them. Hundreds of ships are appearing in the outer system. Kelrath rushed to look at the sensors. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive fleet had just arrived. More ships than he had ever seen in one place. And they were moving toward the planet at high speed. Who are they? He whispered. Zelmar checked the database. The computer searched for a match to the unknown drive signatures. Finally, an answer came back. When Zelmar read it, his face turned pale with fear. They are from a planet called Earth. It is listed as a Class 12 death world. The database says to avoid all contact. It says they are extremely dangerous. The humans have come. Kelrath sat down heavily. Deathworlders. The nightmares of civilized space. The monsters that evolved on the most hostile planets in the galaxy. They were worse than the Kreshtar. At least the swarm was a known threat. Humans were unknown, unpredictable, terrifying. Why would they come here? Kelrath asked. What do they want? No one had an answer. They could only watch as the human fleet approached. The Kreshtar had seen them too. The swarm ships were changing formation, turning to face this new threat. For a moment, Kelrath felt a strange hope. Maybe the humans and the Kreshtar would destroy each other. Maybe his people would survive in the chaos. Aboard the Horizon, Daniel watched the tactical display update in real time. The enemy had noticed them. Good. That meant they could talk before the shooting started. Amy, open a channel to the Kreshtar fleet, Daniel ordered. Let us see if they speak our language. Channel open, sir, Amy reported. Daniel took a breath and spoke clearly. "Attention, Kreshtar vessels. This is Captain Daniel Cross of the United Earth Navy. You are attacking a civilian population. We are here to stop you. Power down your weapons and withdraw from the system immediately. This is your only warning." There was silence for a long moment. Then a response came back. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. The Kreshtar were laughing. "Unknown species," the Kreshtar commander responded. "You have no authority here. This colony belongs to the swarm now. Leave or be destroyed." Daniel looked at Stephanie. She shrugged. They had tried diplomacy. Now it was time for the other option. "All ships, battle stations," Daniel ordered. "Prepare to engage on my command." Across the human fleet, 300 ships armed their weapons. Missile tubes loaded. Energy weapons charged. Fighters launched from carriers. Marines suited up in their armor. Medical teams stood ready to receive wounded. The Kreshtar swarm moved into attack formation. They had never retreated from a battle. They had conquered 17 star systems. They did not fear this unknown species, but they should have, because they were about to learn what it meant to face creatures from a death world. They were about to discover why the galaxy feared Earth, and they were about to understand that humans would cross the stars to protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The two fleets faced each other across the darkness of space. On one side, the Kreshtar swarm with their 80 biological ships. On the other side, 300 human vessels bristling with weapons. The colony between them held its breath and waited for the violence to begin. Admiral Hayes sat in her command chair watching the tactical display. Every enemy ship was highlighted in red. Every human ship glowed blue. The formation was perfect. Her fleet had positioned itself between the Kreshtar and the planet. If the swarm wanted to attack the colony, they would have to go through humanity first. "Enemy ships are powering weapons," reported Commander Lisa Grant. "They are preparing to attack." "Hold fire," Patricia ordered calmly. "Let them make the first move. I want every camera recording this. I want proof that we acted in self-defense." On the Kreshtar command ship, the swarm leader studied the unknown vessels. They were smaller than his bioships, but there were so many of them. He had fought many species before. He had always won through superior numbers and aggression. But this time the enemy had more ships. That was unusual. "Identify these creatures," the swarm leader commanded. His science officer worked quickly, scanning the human vessels and comparing them to the galactic database. When the answer came back, the officer hesitated before speaking. "Commander, they are from Sol 3. The species is called human. The planet is designated as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating that exists." The swarm leader felt something he rarely experienced: uncertainty. He had heard stories of death worlds, planets so hostile that merely surviving there required extreme adaptations. The creatures that evolved on such worlds were invariably dangerous. But he had never actually encountered one before. "What are their capabilities?" he asked. "Unknown, Commander. The database has very little information. There is only a warning. It says to avoid contact with death world species under all circumstances." The swarm leader looked at his tactical display. 300 ships, all positioning themselves defensively, all waiting. They had not attacked. That was interesting. Perhaps they were not as aggressive as the database suggested. Perhaps they could be intimidated. "All ships advance," the swarm leader ordered. "We will test their resolve." The Kreshtar fleet began moving forward. The biological ships pulsed with internal light as they powered their weapons. They were preparing to fire. On the horizon, alarms began sounding. The enemy was approaching. Weapons were hot. Contact was imminent. "Sir, we have firing solutions on all targets," Kevin reported from Tactical. "Waiting for your order." Daniel watched the Kreshtar ships advance. His finger hovered over the weapons authorization button. Every instinct told him to fire first, destroy the enemy before they could threaten his fleet. But he remembered Admiral Hayes' orders. "Hold fire. Let them start it." Then something unexpected happened. The Kreshtar stopped advancing. Their ships held position just outside of weapons range. They were not attacking. They were hesitating. "What are they doing?" Stephanie wondered aloud. "They are thinking," Daniel said. "They are trying to decide if we are worth the risk." Aboard the Kreshtar command ship, the science officer had found more information. Deep in the galactic database, buried in historical records, were old reports about Earth. They detailed a planet of extreme weather, dangerous animals, and constant natural disasters. They described humans as persistence hunters who never gave up, as creatures who bonded in tribes and fought together, as a species that had climbed to the top of their food chain through intelligence and cooperation. "Commander," the science officer said nervously, "I recommend we withdraw. The historical records suggest that engaging Deathworlders is extremely dangerous. Many species that tried have been destroyed." The swarm leader's pride warred with his survival instinct. He had never retreated from battle. The swarm did not flee, but he also had not survived this long by being foolish. He looked at the human fleet again. 300 ships, all waiting patiently, all ready to fight. "Calculate our chances of victory," he ordered. The tactical computer ran simulations. The results were not good. Even if the Kreshtar won, they would lose most of their ships. The humans had superior numbers and unknown technology. The battle could go either way. It was a gamble. On the planet below, Kelrath watched both fleets on his sensors. Neither side was moving. Neither side was shooting. It was a standoff, but why? Why were the Kreshtar hesitating? They had been so aggressive before. Then Zelmar spoke up with sudden understanding. "Sir, I think the Kreshtar are afraid. They ran a database check on the humans. They know what Earth is. They know what Deathworlders are capable of. So they might leave?" Kelrath asked with growing hope. "They might," Zelmar said. "The swarm is aggressive, but they are not suicidal. If they think they cannot win, they will retreat." Kelrath made a decision. He opened a channel to the human fleet. He had to try. "Human ships, this is Administrator Kelrath of the Vrexian colony. We sent the distress call. We did not know it would reach you. We are grateful you came. Please help us." The message reached the Olympus seconds later. Patricia listened to the alien voice speaking broken English. She heard the fear and the hope mixed together. She made her decision. "This is Admiral Hayes. We received your message. We are here to protect you. The Kreshtar will not harm your people. You have my word." Patricia switched to the fleet-wide channel. "All ships maintain defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon, but make sure the enemy knows we are ready." She had one more message to send. She opened a channel to the Kreshtar. "Kreshtar Commander, I know you are evaluating your options. Let me make this simple for you. You cannot win this fight. Even if you destroy some of our ships, we will destroy all of yours. Your swarm will die here, but it does not have to be this way. Leave now. Leave peacefully. No one else needs to die today." On the Kreshtar command ship, the swarm leader received the message. The human spoke with absolute confidence. No threats, no anger, just a simple statement of fact. "We will win. You will lose. Leave." The swarm leader made his choice. Survival was more important than pride. "All ships withdraw," he ordered. "Set course for the nearest swarm-controlled system." "We leave this place." His officers were shocked. The swarm had never retreated before, but they obeyed. The biological ships began turning away from the planet. They started moving away from the human fleet. On the horizon, alarms changed from red to yellow. The enemy was withdrawing. "Sir, the Kreshtar are leaving," Kevin reported with surprise. "All vessels are moving away from the planet." "They are running!" Daniel could hardly believe it. They had won without firing a single shot. The enemy had taken one look at the human fleet and decided it was not worth the fight. Stephanie started laughing. "We scared them off. The big bad swarm took one look at us and ran away." Across the human fleet, crews celebrated. They had come prepared for a terrible battle. They had expected casualties and damage. Instead, they had achieved total victory through intimidation alone. The Deathworld reputation had done the fighting for them. On the planet, the Vrexians watched in amazement as the Kreshtar fleet departed. The sensors showed the swarm ships moving faster and faster, running away from the system. They were actually running. The unstoppable swarm that had conquered 17 systems was fleeing from the humans. Kelrath felt tears forming in his eyes. His people were saved. The nightmare was over, and they had been rescued by the very creatures the galaxy feared most. Patricia watched the Kreshtar leave on her screens. When the last enemy ship jumped away, she allowed herself a small smile. Then she got back to work. "Launch reconnaissance drones. I want to know where they are going. And get me a damage assessment of the colony. We need to know how bad things are down there." Lisa worked her console. "Admiral, we are receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you immediately." "Of course they do," Patricia said. "Put them through." The holographic projectors activated and 5 alien beings appeared. They looked angry and confused. The one that looked like a crystal tree spoke first. Admiral Hayes, you had no authorization to deploy your fleet. You have violated multiple treaty provisions. You have interfered in a situation that was not your concern. Patricia kept her face neutral. A civilian population was under attack. We had the means to help. We helped. I am not sure what the problem is. The problem, said the floating jellyfish creature, is that you have deployed more military force than anyone has seen in centuries. You have demonstrated capabilities far beyond what we believed you possessed. You have destabilized this entire region of space, really? Patricia asked. Because from where I am sitting, we just saved 300,000 civilians without firing a shot. We stopped an aggressive invasion. We did it peacefully. That seems pretty stable to me. The crystal tree being looked frustrated. The Kreshtar swarm has never retreated before. Your intervention will have consequences we cannot predict. Yes, Patricia agreed. The consequence is that the swarm now knows they cannot attack whoever they want without facing opposition. That seems like a good consequence to me. The council members argued among themselves in various alien languages. Finally, the bear-like creature spoke. Admiral, we appreciate your intervention. However, we must insist that your fleet withdraw immediately. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Talmar 4. Daniel sat in the passenger section with 10 Marines and felt his stomach tighten with nerves. This was first contact with an alien species. Humans had been part of the galactic community for less than a year. They had mostly kept to themselves, trading carefully and avoiding conflicts. Now they were about to meet aliens face to face as rescuers. Sergeant Linda Cruz sat across from him, checking her rifle for the third time. She was a tough woman with scars on her face and hands that told stories of past battles. But even she looked nervous. What do you think they look like? Asked one of the younger Marines. Does it matter? Linda replied. We are here to help them, not judge their appearance. Everyone stay calm. Be respectful. And for God's sake, do not point your weapons at anyone unless I give the order. The shuttle landed in the central plaza of the colony. Daniel stood up and straightened his uniform. He had chosen to wear his dress uniform instead of combat armor. He wanted to look professional, not threatening. The Marines followed his lead, keeping their weapons lowered. The ramp opened and Daniel stepped out into alien sunlight. The sky was a pale green color. The air smelled different, like flowers he had never encountered. And waiting for him in the plaza were dozens of Vrexians. They were tall and slender with smooth blue skin. They had 4 arms instead of 2. Their heads were triangular with large eyes that seemed to take up half their faces. They watched the humans with obvious fear, staying far back from the shuttle. One Vrexian stepped forward. He wore robes that suggested authority. Daniel guessed this was their leader. I am Administrator Kelrath, the alien said through a translation device. His voice was musical, almost like singing. On behalf of the Vrexian people, I thank you for your intervention. Daniel extended his hand, then remembered that might not be a universal gesture. He lowered it awkwardly. Captain Daniel Cross, we are glad we could help. How many casualties did you suffer? Kelrath's large eyes showed sadness. 17 dead from the initial bombardment. 43 injured. Our medical facilities are overwhelmed. We do not have enough doctors for everyone. We have medical teams ready to deploy, Daniel said. If you give us permission, Dr. Helen Rodriguez and her staff can assist your doctors. Kelrath looked uncertain. You would help our wounded, even though you do not know us? That is what doctors do, Daniel said simply. They help people who are hurt. It does not matter who those people are. Within an hour, human medical teams were setting up in the colony's hospital. Helen walked through the building with a Vrexian doctor named Pelthar. The alien doctor was nervous around the humans, but trying hard not to show it. Your equipment is very advanced, Pelthar observed as human medics unpacked portable surgical units. We have nothing like this. Earth is a dangerous place, Helen explained. We needed to develop good trauma medicine just to survive our own planet. Animals, weather, accidents. Humans get hurt a lot. Because it is a death world, Pelthar said quietly. Helen looked at him. Yes, Earth is classified as a death world. But that is not all it is. It is also beautiful. It is home. And yes, it made us tough. But it also made us compassionate. When you grow up facing danger, you learn to value life. They entered a room where a young Vrexian lay injured. She had been crushed by falling debris when the Kreshtar first attacked. Her breathing was labored and her blue skin had turned pale. Pelthar looked at her with helpless frustration. We do not have the equipment to fix her internal injuries, Pelthar said. She will die within hours, Helen rolled up her sleeves. Then we better get to work. Let me see her scans. The surgery took 3 hours. Helen worked alongside Pelthar, their differences forgotten in the shared purpose of saving a life. The human tools made things possible that Vrexian medicine could not achieve. But Pelthar's knowledge of Vrexian anatomy was essential. Together they repaired the damage and stabilized the patient. When they finished, both doctors were exhausted. They cleaned up in silence. Then Pelthar spoke. You saved her life. Without your help, she would have died. We saved her life, Helen corrected. I could not have done it without your knowledge. Medicine is a partnership. Pelthar looked at Helen with new understanding. The council told us to fear Deathworlders. They said you were violent and dangerous, but you are healers. We can be both, Helen said honestly. Humans are capable of great violence when necessary. Our world demanded it, but we are also capable of great kindness. The two things are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. Outside the hospital, Daniel walked through the colony with Kelrath. The administrator was showing him the damage from the attack. Buildings had collapsed. Infrastructure was destroyed. The colony would need weeks of repairs. We can help with this too, Daniel said. We have engineering teams and supplies. If you allow it, we can assist with reconstruction. Kelrath stopped walking and turned to face Daniel. Why are you helping us so much? What do you want in return? Daniel thought about how to answer. We want nothing. You sent a distress call. We answered it. Now we are helping you recover. That is what good neighbors do. But we are not neighbors, Kelrath said. We did not even know humans existed until today. And the distress call was not meant for you. It was an accident that you received it. Does that matter? Daniel asked. You needed help. We were able to help. The rest is just details. Kelrath's large eyes studied Daniel's face. The galaxy fears your kind. They call Earth a nightmare world. They teach their children that Deathworlders are monsters to be avoided. But you do not seem like monsters to me. That is because we are not monsters, Daniel said. We are just people who come from a difficult place. Yes, Earth is dangerous. Yes, it made us strong. But it also taught us to work together, to help each other, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Those lessons matter more than where we come from. News of the human rescue spread across the colony quickly. Vrexians who had been hiding in shelters began emerging. They saw human soldiers helping to clear debris. They saw human doctors treating their wounded. They saw human engineers repairing their power grid. The fear began to fade, replaced by cautious gratitude. Young Vrexian children approached the human Marines with curiosity. The Marines trained killers who could fight wars, sat down and showed the kids pictures of Earth on their tablets. They shared ration bars and told stories. The children giggled at the strange aliens with their weird two-armed bodies and flat faces. Chris Bennett found himself surrounded by a group of Vrexian teenagers. They wanted to know about his fighter craft. They asked questions about Earth. They wondered what humans ate and how they lived. Chris answered as best he could through the translation devices. Do you have families on Earth? Asked one young Vrexian. Yes, Chris said. I have parents and a younger sister. They live in New York City. Do you miss them? All the time, Chris admitted. But this is my job. I go where I am needed. Right now I am needed here. To protect us, the Vrexian said quietly. To protect you, Chris agreed. In orbit, the human fleet maintained its position. Ships ran constant patrols. Sensors watched for any sign of the Kreshtar returning. Fighter squadrons flew in rotating shifts. Everyone stayed alert and ready. Katie Pierce led her squadron on another patrol sweep. The fighters moved in perfect formation through space. They had trained together for years. Now they were putting that training to use protecting an alien world. Alpha Leader, this is Olympus Control, came Admiral Hayes' voice. We are detecting some debris from the Kreshtar attack. Several damaged satellites and destroyed orbital platforms. Can you get visual confirmation? Roger that, Olympus, Katie replied. Moving to investigate. The fighters approached the debris field. What they found was heartbreaking. The wreckage of Vrexian ships and stations floated in the darkness. These had been the colony's only defense. They had fought bravely and been destroyed for their efforts. Olympus, this is Alpha Leader, Katie reported. I am seeing multiple destroyed defense platforms. Looks like the Vrexians put up a good fight before they went down. Acknowledged, Alpha Leader. Mark the locations. We will send recovery teams. Katie looked at the wreckage and felt sadness. These aliens had tried to defend their home with outdated weapons and inferior numbers. They had known they would lose but fought anyway. That took courage. Back on the surface, evening was approaching. The colony's sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Daniel stood with Kelrath on a balcony overlooking the city. "Your people have done so much in just one day," Kelrath said. 17 of our wounded are now stable. 3 buildings have been cleared of debris. The main power grid is partially restored. Without your help, it would have taken us weeks. "We are happy to help," Daniel said, "but we cannot stay forever. In 3 days we will withdraw to the outer system. Council forces should arrive soon after." Kelrath nodded slowly. "I understand, but I hope this is not goodbye forever. Perhaps Earth and Vrexia can be friends. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Daniel smiled. "I would like that. Humanity is still new to the galactic community. We are still learning how to be part of it. Friends would be good. Even if those friends come from a death world?" Kelrath asked. "Especially then," Daniel said, "because maybe we can show the galaxy." The second day brought new challenges and deeper connections. Helen woke early in her temporary quarters near the hospital. She had slept only 4 hours, but there was too much work to do for more rest. Dozens of injured Vrexians still needed treatment. Some had infections. Others had broken bones that were healing poorly. All of them needed care. She met Pelthar in the hospital corridor. The Vrexian doctor looked as tired as she felt. They had worked late into the night on several complicated cases. "Good morning, Dr. Rodriguez," Pelthar said. His translation device turned his musical language into English words. "I have coffee ready for you. Or at least our version of it." Helen smiled and accepted the cup. The liquid was purple and smelled like mint. She took a cautious sip. It was surprisingly good, sweet, and energizing. "This is wonderful," she said. "Thank you. I researched human biology last night," Pelthar admitted. "I wanted to understand your species better. What I learned was fascinating. Humans can survive in extreme temperatures. You can go days without water. You heal from injuries that would kill most species. Your planet truly shaped you into survivors." "It also shaped us in other ways," Helen said. "We learned to work in groups. We learned to share resources. We learned that helping each other was the only way to survive. Those lessons are just as important as being tough." They walked through the hospital together, checking on patients. Each room told a story. A mother holding her child who had been trapped under rubble. An elderly Vrexian who had tried to fight the Kreshtar with nothing but courage. A young engineer who had stayed at his post keeping the shields running until they failed. In one room they found something unexpected. A human nurse named Sarah Young sat with a Vrexian child who could not sleep. Sarah was reading to the child from a datapad, showing pictures of Earth animals. The child's eyes were wide with wonder. "That is a dog," Sarah explained, pointing to a picture. "Humans keep them as companions. They are loyal and friendly, and they make us happy." "You have animals that are friends?" the child asked in broken English. "We do. We have dogs and cats and horses and many others. Not everything on Earth is dangerous. There is beauty too." Helen watched this scene and felt emotion rise in her chest. This was what humanity could be at its best. Not warriors or survivors, but teachers and friends. This was the side of Deathworlders that the galaxy never saw. Across the colony, human engineers worked alongside Vrexian workers to repair infrastructure. The water treatment plant had been damaged in the attack. Without it, the colony would run out of clean water in days. A team led by Lieutenant Brandon Cole was rebuilding the filtration systems. Brandon was a practical man who loved solving problems. He looked at the alien technology with fascination. It was different from human designs, but based on the same principles. Water was water, no matter what planet you were on. "Hand me that coupling," Brandon said to his assistant. A Vrexian worker named Telvac passed him the tool. They had been working together all morning, finding ways to communicate despite the language barrier. Sometimes a pointed finger was enough. Sometimes a simple nod. Engineering was a universal language. "You are very skilled," Telvac said. "You understand our systems quickly." Brandon shrugged. "All systems are basically the same. You identify the problem, find the solution, and fix it. Whether you are on Earth or Telmar 4, the process does not change." "But you have such advanced tools," Telvac said. "Things we have never seen before." "We had to develop them," Brandon explained. "Earth has earthquakes and hurricanes and floods. Our infrastructure breaks down a lot. We got good at fixing things quickly because we had to. The work continued throughout the day. By evening, the water treatment plant was operational again. Clean water flowed through the colony's pipes. It was a small victory, but an important one. Admiral Hayes spent the day in diplomatic communications. The Galactic Council wanted daily updates. They were nervous about having such a large human fleet in their territory. They worried about what message it sent to other species. They feared that humanity was becoming too bold. Patricia listened to their concerns with patience. Then she calmly explained the situation again. Civilians had been in danger. Earth had responded. The crisis was over. The fleet would leave soon. Everything was fine, but the Council was not satisfied. The Crystal Tree, being Counselor Thex, had particular concerns. Admiral Hayes, we have reports that your people are integrating deeply with the Vrexian colony. Medical teams, engineering teams, even social interactions. This level of contact is unusual for a first meeting between species. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Is there a rule against being helpful? There is a protocol, Thex said stiffly. First contact situations are supposed to be carefully managed. There are procedures to follow. Cultural exchange is supposed to happen slowly, over years, not in days. With respect, Counselor, we did not have years. We had hours. People were dying. We saved them, and now we are helping them recover. If that violates your protocols, then maybe your protocols need updating. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. They were not used to being challenged so directly. Humans were a new species to galactic politics. They did not understand the careful dance of diplomacy and tradition. You must understand our position, said Counselor Mira, the jellyfish creature. Earth's sudden appearance as a military power has created uncertainty. Other species are nervous. Some are even arming themselves in case you become aggressive. Then they are wasting their resources, Patricia said firmly. Earth has no interest in conquest. We came here to help, not to start a war. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears. The conversation went in circles for another hour. Finally, the council agreed to wait and observe. They would send their own fleet to Talmar 4 as planned. They would evaluate the situation when they arrived. In the meantime, they asked Patricia to minimize contact with the Rexians. Patricia agreed to do her best. Then she closed the communication and immediately ignored their request. The Vrexians needed help. Her people were providing it. That was not going to change because some council members were uncomfortable. On the planet's surface, evening brought a moment of celebration. The main power grid had been fully restored. Lights came on across the entire colony for the first time since the attack. Vrexians cheered and hugged each other. Some cried with relief. Kelrath stood in the central plaza and watched his people celebrate. Daniel stood beside him, both of them smiling at the joy around them. This is because of you, Kelrath said. Because humans came when no one else would. We did not do this alone, Daniel replied. Your people worked just as hard. They showed us where to help and how to help. This is a shared victory. A group of Vrexian children ran up to them. They had learned some English words and wanted to practice. They pointed at Daniel and said simple phrases. Thank you, human. You are nice. We like Earth people. Daniel knelt down to their level and smiled. I like Vrexian people too. You are all very brave. One child, bolder than the others, reached out and touched Daniel's hand. The child giggled at how warm human skin was compared to Vrexian. Soon all the children wanted to touch the strange alien. Daniel patiently let them examine his hands, his hair, his face. They were curious, and he was happy to satisfy that curiosity. Kelrath watched this and felt something shift in his understanding. The council had taught him that Deathworlders were dangerous. They had said humans were too violent to be trusted. But these humans were gentle with his children. They were kind to his people. They asked for nothing in return for their help. That night, Kelrath invited the human officers to a formal dinner. It was a Vrexian tradition to share food with those who had helped you. The meal was held in the colony's main hall, hastily repaired for the occasion. The food was strange to human taste, but everyone tried it politely. Daniel sat next to Kelrath and attempted to use the four-pronged Vrexian utensils without embarrassing himself. It was harder than it looked. Tell me about Earth, Kelrath said. What is it like to live on a death world? Daniel thought about how to answer. It is challenging. The weather can kill you if you are not careful. There are animals that see humans as food. Natural disasters happen regularly, but it is also beautiful. We have mountains and oceans and forests. We have seasons that change the world 4 times a year. We have diversity that most planets lack. Do you ever wish you came from an easier world? Kelrath asked. Sometimes, Daniel admitted. When I was young, I broke my arm falling out of a tree. When I was a teenager, I nearly died in a flood. Living on Earth is not easy, but I would not trade it for anything. It made me who I am. It gave me strength and perspective. It taught me to appreciate life because I know how fragile it is. Stephanie joined the conversation. Earth also taught us to explore. Humans have always been curious about what is beyond the horizon. That curiosity took us to every corner of our planet. Then it took us to space. Now it has brought us here. To save people you never met, Kelrath said softly. People who would have feared you if they had known you were coming. Fear comes from ignorance, Stephanie said. Now you know us. Are you still afraid? Kelrath looked around the room. Human and Vrexian sat together, sharing food and conversation. Language barriers were overcome with patience and technology. The third day arrived with a sense of urgency. This was the last full day the human fleet would spend at the colony. Tomorrow they would withdraw to the outer system as promised. Everyone wanted to make the remaining time count. Helen stood in the hospital with Pelthar, reviewing the status of every patient. Most were stable now. Some were even well enough to go home. The worst cases had been saved through the combined efforts of human and Vrexian medicine working together. We will be able to manage from here, Pelthar said, though his voice held sadness. You have given us the tools and training we need. Our doctors have learned so much from yours, and ours have learned from you, Helen said. Different approaches to the same problems. That knowledge will help humans for years to come. A young Vrexian doctor approached them nervously. His name was Korvax, and he had shadowed Helen for the past 2 days. He held out a data pad with trembling hands. Dr. Rodriguez, I have compiled all the techniques you taught us. I want to make sure I understand them correctly before you leave. Helen reviewed the notes. They were detailed and accurate, showing not just what to do but why. Korvax had truly understood the lessons. This is excellent work. You are going to be a great doctor, Korvax. Because of what you taught me, Korvax said. Before you came, I was afraid I was not good enough. But you showed me that with the right knowledge and tools, I can save lives. You gave me confidence. Helen felt tears forming but blinked them away. You always had the ability. We just helped you see it. Now go use it to help your people. Across the colony, Brandon and his engineering team were finishing their final project. They had rebuilt the damaged sections of the shield generator. It was not as powerful as it had been, but it would protect the colony from smaller threats until the council arrived with better equipment. Telvac worked beside Brandon, connecting the last power coupling. They had developed an efficient partnership over the past days. Sometimes they worked in silence, both focused on the same goal. Other times they talked about their worlds and their lives. On Earth, do you have a family? Telvac asked as they worked. A wife and 2 kids, Brandon said with a smile. My son is 8 and my daughter is 5. They think it is amazing that their dad is in space helping aliens. You must miss them. Every single day. But this is important work. They understand that. When I get home, I will tell them all about the brave Vrexians I met. I will tell them about you and how we rebuilt this generator together. Telvac felt honored by that. Will you tell them that not all aliens are strange and scary? Brandon laughed. I will tell them that aliens are just people from different places. Some are friends, some are not, but most are worth getting to know. They finished the installation and powered up the shield generator. It hummed to life, creating an invisible protective barrier around the colony. It was not perfect, but it was something. The Vrexians would be safer because of this work. In the central plaza, Daniel met with Kelrath for what might be their last private conversation. The administrator had requested this meeting specifically. He seemed troubled about something. Captain Cross, I need to ask you something difficult, Kelrath began. When you leave tomorrow, will Earth remember us? Will anyone care about what happened here? Daniel was surprised by the question. Of course we will remember. You think we could forget the first alien civilians we saved? But we are small and unimportant, Kelrath said. Just one colony on the edge of Council space. Earth has bigger concerns, surely. Every life matters, Daniel said firmly. That is what humans believe. It does not matter if you are a huge civilization or a small colony. You called for help and we answered. That created a bond between our peoples. We will not forget you. Kelrath looked relieved. I am glad, because we will not forget you either. The Vrexian people are in your debt. If Earth ever needs help, we will answer your call just as you answered ours. We did not do this for debt or obligation, Daniel said. We did it because it was right. But I accept your friendship. That is worth more than any debt. They shook hands, human and alien, sealing a friendship that would endure across the stars. Around them, the colony buzzed with activity. Repairs continued. Life returned to normal. Children played in the streets without fear. It was a beautiful sight. On the Olympus, Admiral Hayes received news from Earth. President Foster wanted to speak with her privately. When his face appeared on her screen, he looked both proud and concerned. Admiral, the whole world is watching what you have done out there, the president said. The news networks cannot stop talking about it. You have made humanity look like heroes. We just did our job, sir, Patricia said simply. You did more than that. You showed the galaxy what Earth stands for. Compassion, courage, the willingness to help those in need. But there are complications now. The Galactic Council is putting pressure on us. Some species are demanding restrictions on our military. Others want to form alliances. You have created a political firestorm, Patricia frowned. What are your orders, sir? Continue as planned. Withdraw to the outer system tomorrow. Monitor until the Council fleet arrives. Then come home. But Patricia, this is just the beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. They know what we are capable of. How we handle that knowledge will define humanity's future among the stars. What do you want that future to look like? Patricia asked. The president thought for a moment. I want us to be the species that helps. The ones that show up when others are in trouble. The ones that prove strength and compassion are not opposites. Can we be that? We already are that, sir. We just need to keep doing it. After the call ended, Patricia stood alone in her office staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kreshtar swarm was licking its wounds and planning its next move. Somewhere out there, other species were watching Earth with fear and curiosity. Somewhere out there, the future was being written. That evening, the Vrexians organized a farewell ceremony in the central plaza. Thousands gathered to thank the humans who had saved them. Kelrath stood on a platform and addressed both his people and the human visitors. 3 days ago, we faced destruction, Kelrath said, his voice carrying across the plaza. The Kreshtar swarm was going to kill us all. We sent a desperate call for help, never expecting it to be answered. But it was answered. By beings we had been taught to fear. By Deathworlders from a planet we considered a nightmare. He paused, looking at the human soldiers and doctors and engineers standing in the crowd. But these Deathworlders did not come to conquer or harm us. They came to protect us. They asked for nothing in return. Their doctors saved our wounded. Their engineers rebuilt our homes. Their soldiers stood watch so we could sleep safely. They showed us that the label, Deathworlder, tells us nothing about who they truly are. Kelrath's voice grew stronger. The galaxy teaches us to fear Earth. They say it is too dangerous. They say its people are too violent. But I say the galaxy is wrong. Yes, Earth is dangerous. Yes, its people are strong. But that strength is used to protect, not destroy. That danger is faced by those who would harm the innocent. He turned to face the humans directly. To the people of Earth, the Vrexian colony offers its eternal gratitude. You have given us our lives. You have given us our future. You have shown us that in the vast darkness of space there are lights that shine. You are those lights. The Vrexians erupted in applause, all forearms moving in their traditional gesture of respect. The humans stood quietly, many with tears in their eyes. They had not expected this level of appreciation. They had just been doing their jobs. Daniel stepped forward to respond. Administrator Kelrath, people of Talmar 4, we thank you for your kindness. But we did not do anything special. We simply responded to someone in need. Any decent civilization would have done the same. But they did not, Kelrath said. The Council fleet was 2 days away. You were here in 16 hours. You chose to come when others chose to wait. That choice matters. After the ceremony, there was music and dancing. Vrexian musicians played instruments that sounded like wind chimes mixed with drums. Humans tried to learn the traditional dances and mostly failed, but everyone laughed together. The cultural exchange was messy and imperfect and wonderful. Chris Bennett found himself talking with a group of young Vrexians who dreamed of becoming pilots. They asked him endless questions about flying fighters in space. What was it like? Was it scary? How did you train for it? It is the best job in the universe, Chris told them honestly. You get to fly among the stars. You get to see things most people never see. And yes, it can be scary. But fear means you understand the risks. That keeps you sharp. That keeps you alive. Could a Vrexian become a pilot on a human ship? One of them asked hopefully. Chris thought about it. I do not see why not. If you have the skill and the courage, the rest is just training. Maybe someday we will fly together. The young Vrexians looked at each other with excitement. The possibility had never occurred to them before, but now because of what happened here, anything seemed possible. As the celebration wound down, Helen found herself walking through the hospital one last time. She stopped at each room, checking on the patients she had treated. Most were sleeping peacefully. The young girl they had saved on the first day was playing a game with her mother, both of them smiling. Pelthar joined.